Welcome to the Lapin Assessment. I'm extremely pleased to have with me again Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserves, Gideon Harari. He was on last month. We got very good feedback from our conversation, and I'm extremely pleased to be able to continue this conversation. We have a lot to talk about and multiple arenas and developments to get into, and we're going to be doing some deep dives and taking advantage of the long form podcast form. Gidi, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me, inviting me.
All my pleasure. Now, Gideon, we've been talking about a few things off camera, and I think the most pressing thing that we should, bring to the viewers' attention is your understanding of the current situation in Lebanon. We have a very unusual situation in the sense that we hear about a ceasefire, but in reality, I'm calling this arrangement, it's not a ceasefire, it's an agreement on where the fighting should occur, which is southern Lebanon and the security zone. I don't know how long this is going to last, but that seems to be the only thing that anybody's agreeing on is that the combat is limited to there. And we're seeing quite intense combat. We're seeing Israel stabilize or attempt to stabilize its security zone. How do you see the current situation, and how do you see the interplay between the military situation on the ground, the diplomatic process, the historic diplomatic process, which I have to say, you in some ways predicted, Gidi. You said that there was an opportunity here to do something new diplomatically with this Lebanese government, and after you said it, it began to happen. So you definitely
Maybe
deserve
someone,
some
maybe someone read my paper, but I don't know.
or listen to our podcast, which would be even better. But you definitely called it. You definitely called it. So how do you see things at the moment? Where do you see things playing out?
So let's start from the ground. And actually, the the military situation is engaged directly with the diplomatic situation in the Gulf between the United States and Iran. And of course, President Trump, since he desired to reach an agreement with the IRGC, he understands that he needs to have a quiet atmosphere in the south of Lebanon. And he's actually, let's open it and say he's obliging Israel not to respond the way it should be done towards Hezbollah,
Right.
because and Hezbollah is, of course, taking advantage of it. They understand that we are as an American proxy in the Middle East. Sadly, I'm saying it, but this is the truth. They are taking advantage of that we cannot attack them neither in Beirut nor in the Bekaa Valley. And the fighting is taking place actually just in south of Lebanon. So of course we can strike them in south of Lebanon, but it's not enough. It's not enough because attacking in Beirut and in the Bekaa, it's important not only for us as the Israeli army in order to stop them attacking us in the south, but it's important, and this is something that maybe it's not important enough for the Americans, but it's important, very much important for us. Actually, attacking in Beirut and in the Bekaa, it helps the Lebanese government to stay into the negotiation with Israel, because it weakens Hezbollah.
Right.
And it's very complicated because in one hand, we want to help the Americans with the greater negotiation and the most important negotiation for the Americans in the Gulf, But for us, the Lebanese issue, temporarily for now, it's even more important because there is a big issue of getting life back in the north of Israel.
Right.
So I don't know where is it going to, but it looks very bad. It looks very bad because I believe that at the end of the day, we will not have any other choice but to do something to be in Beirut, in the Bekaa, something meaningful, meaningful. It's very clear to me that Hezbollah is in a very weak place,
Okay.
both military and internally, but in the internal politics in Lebanon,
Right.
and they are fighting for their lives. And as we've been talking before, 1,800 deaths of Hezbollah during a month, 1 month and 2 weeks. It's a big issue. It was never done, and they understand that they have some kind of a problem with us. And actually, what is going on that us that we are not getting back to them, striking them as we want and as we can, we help them
Right.
instead of helping the Lebanese government.
So, first of all, I think that the insight that you're bringing here that if Israel were to expand its attacks to Hezbollah targets in Beirut and the Bekaa Valley, which is in the east of Lebanon towards Syria, rather than limiting them to South Lebanon as the situation is right now, this would actually help the Lebanese government because it would present them with a weakened variant of Hezbollah. It would be easier for them to deal with them. I think this is a really important point because it's counterintuitive. It's exactly the opposite of what the world hears. The world hears the official story that the Lebanese government wants us to stop attacking so that everybody can live merrily ever after. And you're
Well, the Lebanese government, they want us to stop attacking. It's right. That's right. But the reason they want us to stop attacking because they are afraid of Hezbollah.
right, right. So there is a good opportunity, a good chance here that even though they say they want us to stop attacking, they also wouldn't mind if we stepped up our attacks because this would actually benefit them. It's just that they're not going to say that out loud. And I think it's very important for the viewers of this podcast to understand the double game that's at play. And it's a typical double game here in the Middle East. We're often in these situations where there's an official position and there's a much deeper unofficial position, which is whispered, and most of the world never hears that. So I think it's a critical point that you're making.
Exactly.
Now
Exactly.
let me push back on the idea of us and the United States. In other words, why this is happening. And I have no dispute with you about why this is happening. It's obvious that we are under American pressure to keep these attacks limited to southern Lebanon because this was an Iranian demand. This was an Iranian demand for negotiations to continue and for the ceasefire to occur. Okay, now here's what I think, and I'd love to get your thoughts. The coalition that we have built with the United States is historic, has achieved already historic gains in Iran specifically. And therefore, to me, even though it's very difficult, and I agree with you that there's a time limit, this can't go on forever. There's no question about it. But at least for now, I understand why Prime Minister Netanyahu feels the need to do this because the coalition with the United States and with the Trump administration and the achievements against Iran is a game changer for the Middle East, for our security. And it's not easy for him to turn around after fighting, wing to wing in Iran, to turn around to Washington and say, you know what, we're not going to listen to you. I find it very hard to understand how he can do something like that after the past 5 weeks. What do you think?
Well, actually, I think that he cannot do it.
Right,
This is the very
right,
simple answer.
right,
I think he cannot do it, but I really expect that the Americans should conduct their diplomacy in a tougher way with the Iranians.
Mm,
The message that President Trump is it's some kind of double messages that he's sending all the time. This is not the way to deal the negotiate to manage the negotiation in the Middle East. It should be very clear to the Iranians what they want, the Americans, and what are the risks they are taking. And they should understand that the hammer is in one hand and is ready to hit. And they don't see it like that. I think that they, as usually they do, they are trying to buy time and they know how to do it. And it looks as if the American administration doesn't have enough experience with these guys. I don't know. I don't want to too
what,
much
what about the
speak about the
blockade?
American politics because I'm not a specialist on it.
Yeah,
But there is no question today that Israel is the best ally that the Americans have in the Middle East, even better than
right,
the Europeans. And there is no question that not only that we are loyal to the alliance, that we are much better in a in the professional side of military
right.
than any other one that can come in our place. And another thing that I want to I read it somewhere and I agree with it very much. I was talking about it also, that the Americans, I believe they will want to at least build their military logistic to the future in Israel
Yep.
instead of having it in Kuwait or in Qatar or in Turkey or in Europe. The problem is that Israel is a very small country, so there is a lack of space, but they will sure do something towards it.
Definitely, I can think of several candidates in the Negev Desert that could fulfill this place, which is still pretty empty, even though the military is very active there. But it's interesting because I wonder what your take is, and this is why we got to Iran, I guess, so quickly because everything here is interlinked. We'll come back to Lebanon in a minute, but what do you think about the blockade? Because my sense is that the blockade, the naval blockade, is an excellent option for pressuring the regime. Not only does it put them in a sort of time limited spot where time is not working on behalf of the Iranian regime, they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars every single day. Their oil export system is under massive stress and could disintegrate because apparently you can't just keep filling up containers. At some point, something has to give. So the blockade seems to be the change here, where the Americans are telling the Iranians, we can outweight you. And it's not a return to war, but it's economic war. It's a chokehold, and it also affects the Iranian ability to support its proxies like Hezbollah. So, what do you think about doing these negotiations from the position of having a blockade?
I think that the blockade is a very good card to play with, and it should be much more tight than now, and it can be.
Hmm.
And the other card that they are taking vessels from the Indian Ocean that are coming empty instead of arriving Iran and putting the oil there as a deposit. It's very good idea. But the blockade should be very tight because we don't have a lot of time, and the Iranians, they do play on time. So pressing them very hard, this might be a very good card to play with now.
Right. So let's go back to the Northern Arena. And one of the things that I said that I would talk to you about is something that you mentioned in our last podcast, which is the Saudi role in Lebanon. And we have hopes that the Saudis will play a constructive role, will push back against the Shiite Iranian fundamentalist role, the destructive role in Lebanon and the region. And so it was interesting for me to see a report that the Saudis had told the Lebanese government, they advised them not to have direct negotiations with Prime Minister Netanyahu. At least that's according to a certain report, which I find very believable. And, it seems that they're telling the Lebanese government, go ahead and negotiate, but don't go past a certain level, or else you're going to have a problem with your legitimacy, which is pretty disappointing when you think about it, because we're talking about Saudi Arabia, a country that we were supposed to be on a path with towards normalization before October 7th, and here they are rolling it back, not for themselves, but for Lebanon. How do you make sense of these reports? Is this all just optics and then defending their legitimacy? How do you view this?
First of all, I think that it's too early to bring in Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Aoun to meet each other. It's too early, and I agree with the Saudis that this meeting shouldn't take place now.
Interesting.
But it will. We need to give time to these talks that we are having now in Washington. Again, I'm very much in favor of these talks, and as you know, I'm very in favor of Saudi taking place in this role, taking some role in this negotiation. But the way that it's managing now, it's that the U.S. is managing the negotiation, and this is the main issue, which I think it's not right to do it. I really believe that we and the Saudis should be in the same side, or the Saudis should be in the middle between us and Lebanon, and the Americans should be supervising it from outside. Because I still think that we and the Saudis are our interests, mutual interests, are much more than ever
Right.
in these talks. Now, the Saudis are very, very much um, afraid of a civil war in Lebanon again.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, they are talking about renewing the Taif agreement,
Yep.
which the Taif agreement says that all the militias in Lebanon should disarm themselves. The Christians, the Druze, the Sunnis, the Shia. It's too early, but we should start with Hezbollah. But of course, everything should come together into the negotiation with Israel and Saudi, and I think this is the way to do it.
Gotcha. Okay. Now there's a central paradox here that, maybe you can help me understand, because one of the lessons of October 7th is that we have to have security zones and buffer zones for the northern communities where you live, and for the southern communities in the western Negev, that never again can we allow a situation in which the jihadist armies are on the border. Now, the Lebanese government, in any negotiation, and in order to actually normalize, they're going to demand clearly that we withdraw back to the border. That's what they're going to demand in exchange for any kind of a peace treaty. And the big question is, what would it take, Gidi? What would it take for us to say we can take this risk? Because it should be really one of the last things I think we should agree to do after everything we've experienced over the past 2 years. We see how entrenched Hezbollah is even today, after, as you say, losing 1,800 terrorists and a month of warfare and 5 divisions maneuvering in southern Lebanon, and they're still there. They're still entrenched. So how can we square this circle? How can we tell the Lebanese we're going to pull back and still, maintain security for the north? The two things don't seem to come together. What are we missing?
I'm not a big fan of a security zone. I think that Israel, which is in terms of the Middle East, in terms of the Middle East, Israel is a superpower in the Middle East. And if you want to be a superpower, you should behave like a superpower. The buffer zone that we have in Lebanon and in Syria, it's a it's a it's a card in the negotiation with both nations. But in the future, it's clear for me that we should be with the IDF at the international border, and Israel should know how to defend itself on the international border, and we can do it. And we can do it. We didn't do it in the Gaza Strip not because we couldn't do it. We didn't do it because we did a lot of mistakes, and I hope we learned something from it. So I think that both in Lebanon and in Syria, the buffer zone is a card in the negotiation between us and the Lebanese or with the Syrian regime. And hearing people in Israel speaking about we should stay in the buffer zone in Lebanon or in Syria, it's a stupidity because the world, and we are part of the world. The international border is approved by the UN. We have a signed agreement from 1974 with the Syrians. We have an agreement signed in 1948 with the Lebanese, and the border is international agreed. And this is our border, and we should, after completing the negotiation with both countries, we should go back to the international border. This is the way I see it.
First of all, I'm very glad you've said that, and one of the advantages of the Lapin assessment and this podcast is having this exchange of views and giving people the plurality of views that exist in this country. My own perspective is that I don't believe that we can defend border communities from the border. I'm extremely skeptical of our ability to do that. I understand that you have a different perspective, and I totally respect your perspective. I do think that there's a debate to be had about the size, what we can manage in terms of manpower. We don't have endless divisions and we don't have endless reservists. And I take all of that on board. So I don't think we can do, endless large security zones. But my own core belief is that there's got to be an army on the other side of the border, unless, and this is where I'd like to get your view. I don't say it unconditionally. I don't think it's a holy commandment that we have to have. I think it's either that or there has to be a functional state on the other side of the border that can convince me that it can take care of security threats. It
I
can't.
agree. I totally agree with it. This is the idea. To have
Okay,
an agreement that the Lebanese government is taking over south of Lebanon and is managing south of Lebanon as a
right,
free country. I totally
right.
agree with you.
So how can they prove it, Gidi? This is the question because they've made so many claims. Let's take their word for at face value. They want to establish sovereignty. They don't want Hezbollah running around their country anymore. Let's believe them. But the proof of concept is missing because they've made so many claims that they can do this and they
You are
fail
right.
miserably. They fail.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
meanwhile, meanwhile, you are right. But I think that if we are going to reach an agreement with Lebanon, with Saudi, with the Americans,
Hmm.
to disarm Hezbollah and to take them off the south, it can be done. It won't be done in the next 6 months. It will take between 1 year to 2 years, maybe a
Okay.
little bit more, but it will happen. It will happen. And this is where we need to navigate to. This is the end game. The end game that we are on the we are defending Israel from the international border, and in the other side of the border there is a functioning Lebanese government with an army, with all the civilian functions, everything, and Hezbollah is just either will disappear, which I don't believe, but it will be another party in the parliament, maybe, or I don't know what.
Right. So
That
let's talk practically. What has to happen in your view? What do we need to see visually? I don't remember
visually,
if it's you who said it or if it was I who said it, but I had the idea, and maybe this came from you. I don't remember that. Let's start in Beirut. Let's see you clash with Hezbollah, you, the Lebanese government, in Dahia, because until I see a firefight or Hezbollah giving up its weapons, which seems a fantasy, and I see the Lebanese army winning that firefight and actually taking over a neighborhood. It all seems to be words. So what would you?
well, the first thing that should happen is that we should not we, but the Americans should reinforce economically the Lebanese regime.
Mhm.
The first thing is that the soldiers should starting to get a salary which is higher than the salary that Hezbollah is paying, and the
Yeah.
Lebanese government should send their officials to the south to start taking care of the economics, all the issue of health
Hmm.
and the education, starting to move all the functions of a normal country, which is
Right.
not it's not happening today, and
Right.
closing the Card El Hassan, the Hezbollah bank, which is operating in South Lebanon, and it shouldn't be illegal. It shouldn't be operating. The Lebanese banks should come to the south and operate in the south, because if the people in the south of Lebanon will not have any alternative, they
Yes.
will stay with Hezbollah.
Sure. Sure. Of course. So we have to be smart, and here I very much adopt your position where we're saying we don't want to be here, which is the truth, but we have to be here until something can take our place. And my thinking is there's got to be very clear parameters. So I think what you're saying, first of all, is getting rid of the Hezbollah Iranian backed shadow state which
It
they have
should be,
built
it should be, everything should be done parallel.
in parallel as part of one package.
Exactly. We are many years, like Einstein said, that if you are trying to do the same thing once again and once again, you will always reach to the same uh, conclusion.
Yes.
Let's try to do for once and for all something new.
Yeah. And I look, I'm all for it, especially if we're not taking risks, especially if we're not taking big risks for people, for communities like yours, Gidi, because I'm thinking about the security of
That's
your.
what I wanted to tell you. First of all, I have an advantage because I live here on the
Right.
border, and
Right.
I'm willing to take this risk. Me and many others, we are willing to take this risk because this is, as I see it, it's the only option that we have.
I
And
understand.
it's not that I believe that, again, I'm telling you what I said last time. No one is going to love us and kiss us, and it's not going to be. And I'm not looking for it. We are not looking to go to Damascus to eat hummus. We just want to stop the fighting, and the mutual interest that we'll have, they will slowly bring a real peace to the area. Of
Yeah. Do you think that that kind of staged evolution could also improve our international position in the.
course, of
Okay.
course.
Right. And you know that, of course, there will be people who say, and I know you're tired of arguing, but there'll be people who say that in their perception, it's either that or the civilians will be meeting this threat. They don't believe in a situation where there's a third option, where neither the soldiers nor the civilians will be meeting this threat.
Yaakov, I'm 69 years old. I've been participating the first Lebanese war, and I've been serving for 15 years in Lebanon, driving inside Lebanon and leaving the buffer zone in Lebanon before the year 2000. And most of the people that are telling me about the buffer zone, how important it is, didn't had the experience of staying in the buffer zone before the 2000.
Right.
So I'm sorry that there was a show in the television that was called The Time Tunnel. You remember with Tony and Doug.
Right.
So it's a pity that I cannot send them to 1997 to
So
experience the buffer zone that we had in Lebanon before the year 2000.
So I actually did do a little bit of quote unquote time traveling. I've been watching a lot of documentaries from the security zone from the time that it was set up in the 80s up until its very last day in 1999, I think. And I actually saw an incredible documentary made by a British network, ITV, from 1985 about an operation called Iron Fist, which Israel launched in Tyre in Seoul, and basically that was in response to Amal and Amal attacks. And you saw UNIFIL there; they were as useless in 1985 as they are today. It's incredible how, in some ways, so little has changed. And there was the buffer zone. They showed Ma'alot and the horrific attack that it absorbed. It's amazing how much we are really trapped in this cycle of taking on threats on
Doing
different
the same
sides.
thing again and again.
Right, right, right. And so, the incredible thing is that even though this documentary was not particularly favorable to us, it very much highlighted our security problems and why Israel was there to begin with. And it highlighted, I may show a clip, by the way, in this video. I may show a clip from this. And it shows a convoy of IDF vehicles traveling through Tyre, and there's an IED that's remotely detonated with a wire by Amal Shiite militias. It also interviews a Shiite, a woman who was married to a suicide bomber, and how Ayatollah Khomeini was really starting to put his claws onto the Shiite community of southern Lebanon. You really see the foundations of what we're dealing with already existing very clearly by 1985. Absolutely remarkable. And so I think the last question I want to ask you in this particular conversation is, how do you think we deal with the ideological fervor of the Iranian Hezbollah bloc in southern Lebanon? If we agree that they're not going to lay down their arms, if we agree that they will use every opportunity to continue launching attacks, how do we get them to a situation where you say they're just going to be a political party in parliament when they believe with every cell of their body in the jihad? How does this? How do we reach that root?
First of all, we should break the the relation between them and the Iranian regime and stop the money. This is the main issue, the money that is going from Iran to Lebanon. This is the main issue. Second is offering the Shiite population another type of life, another kind of civil service, which, listen, most of them, they don't care about the jihad. Most of them care about living, starting the day, living the day, sending their children to the school, sending them to the university, because, the Shiite, they were always the most low caste in
Sect.
Lebanon,
Yeah.
in all economically, educational, everything. And Hezbollah is not changing it. It's maintaining it because this is the way they can control the people. And all these people that were leaving the town, the small villages in South Lebanon, going to Beirut to search for their future, they understand that the future is in education and economy.
Right.
And this is it will not take 1 year or 2 years. It should be, it will take time.
So you believe that there are enough southern Lebanese Shiites who are willing to leave the Hezbollah framework. They're not fully ideologically committed to it if they're offered an alternative by the Lebanese state. You think that they can be lured away, tempted away from this endless
I,
death cult?
since I've been speaking with a lot of Shiite people, I know that they might be outside very religious, but at night when you're coming there to their home and you sit with them, they will take out the whiskey and will offer you and will be very glad to drink with you. And
Very interesting what you're saying. You see, again, this is why we need you on the podcast. This is the stuff you're not going to hear on
that's
any.
right. But when the Israelis, most of the Israelis can watch Lebanon through the eyes of a soldier and not through the eyes of someone like me or people like me that worked with the Lebanese people in intelligence or whatever. They are not so religious.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And Amal is a good, Amal, it's not a religious organization.
Right.
Maybe today it's more religious than ever, but it's not the idea of Amal, Musa Sader, which was the imam, the founder of Amal. He was an imam, but he didn't believe that people should be leaded by the religion,
The
but
Ayatollahs.
the religion.
Yeah, the clerics and the Ayatollahs of Iran.
Yes.
Well, Gidi, every time I speak to you, I have a new hope. So thank you very much again for your
Thank you,
extremely
Yaakov.
original insights. We're going to get this out to the world. I'm going to put a clip from this documentary. I'm also going to send you the clip, Gidi, so you can take a
Thank
look
you.
at what will be on. It's called Operation Iron Fist. It goes back to 1985. I'm sure it'll bring back memories for you as well. I was 4 years old when this happened, living
Okay.
in living in Haifa. But people like you were busy in southern Lebanon already by that time. So thank you very much again for your insights, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.
Many of the Shiite fanatics are based in the poor districts of Muslim West Beirut. Here, in a city still ravaged by fighting between Christians and Muslims, Khomeini's revival of Shiite Islam has rarely taken root. Among those most committed to the cause is 19-year-old Fatima Mantash. This year she was supposed to be married. Instead, her fiancé Bilal killed himself in a suicide attack which wounded 5 Israeli soldiers.
Before Bilal's martyrdom, a group of youths prepared the truck here under this building with 150 kilograms of TNT. The youths who had permits from the Israelis drove the truck to the countryside where he took over. He wanted to do the operation inside Israel, but couldn't. However, this time he succeeded in hitting a convoy. Truthfully, I was very happy. I had only 2 tears. One because of his martyrdom, and the other of sadness over his death and his departure before me. I wish we had been together on this operation, and to have died and become martyrs together. Thanks be to Allah.
In the last 3 years, Khomeini's fundamentalist message has found many supporters among the Shiites of the Lebanon. Downtrodden for generations, many now believe in an Islamic revolution against foreign influence, above all against the Israelis. Fatima now works for Amal, the Shiite paramilitary organization. She has told her leaders that she too is ready to carry out a suicide mission against the Israeli army in southern Lebanon.
I am doing now all that is required of a woman, and if women are to launch operations like Bilal, I will certainly do so. These operations terrify the Israelis. They cannot understand how a human being would die in such a manner for the services of Islam and Allah. They are terrified once they hear the name Khomeini. We want to force them to withdraw through our own strength in order to make them realize and understand the reality of us as a Muslim people.
The Israeli army in South Lebanon now faces a crucial dilemma.